Hello, my name is Rachel. I am a knitter, a crocheter, a mom, and a teacher. I have been filming myself on this little YouTube university for a little bit, and today I'm just getting my notebook situated. Today I have a few minutes to myself. I don't feel 100%, so I'm going to do my best with today's podcast. I initially recorded, but I didn't really like that one, so I decided to do a whole nother one today and hope that this one will come out a little bit better. But there are a couple things I wanted to share. Let me just get my notes. Also today, a couple things I wanted to share. I have one finished object and I have one acquisition that I'm very excited about. And I have a couple of whips and future knitting and crochet plans as well. So if you are interested in learning more, stick with me and I will talk about them. The first thing I want to talk about today is my anniversary. It's my anniversary with my ChiaoGoo Forte needles. I don't know if you heard, but last year, and I mean like early last year, ChiaoGoo had promoted that they were coming out with this new line of interchangeable needles that were made of ebony, bamboo wood, African wood, and that it would have steel tip needles and a flexible swivel cord, and with all the little goodies and notions that you need in order to successfully engage with a knitting project. And so initially when I saw it, I was like, I have to have it because at that particular point, it was pretty evident that I was going to stick to the craft of knitting, and I wanted to find a needle set that really reflected my style of knitting. And I tried a variety of different needles. I used what is it, Knitter's Pride interchangeable needles. I like the wood ones, but I found that the ease of moving the yarn up and down wasn't really to my liking. Then I tried the Knitter's Pride Cabaz, I believe is how you pronounce it, but I could be saying, or Carbonons. I could be saying it completely wrong, so forgive me. I'm horrible at pronouncing things. But nevertheless, I tried those and they were working pretty well for me for a minute until I had noticed that the tips, the chrome or steel, whatever aluminum material that they were using on the ends was starting to wear off, and it was becoming this like rough thing and it was snagging on my yarn. So I immediately reached out to them and they actually sent me a replacement, but I was still having the same problem. In addition to the chrome wearing off on the tips, they would bend. So when I was like putting the cord on it and you would tighten it, it just bent. And I'm like, I'm not even tightening it that tight, but I noticed that if I didn't do it tight, it would come undone as I was knitting. So I spent too many hours watching various YouTube videos to learn about different interchangeable needles. I settled on the shorty set that I can't even reach right now. I'm in too much discomfort by Lucky. They're the shorty tips that they have. I've been using those for a minute. The only reason why I don't use them for bigger projects because I noticed that it gives me trigger thumb when I use them for too long. So I typically would use those for my hat projects or whenever I'm knitting in a small circumference for a sweater, for example. So after debating with myself and not wanting to spend the money, it was $299 when they initially promoted this particular interchangeable knitting set. And then I watched another review and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So I finally found a vendor who had one in stock and I ordered it and it was good to go. But as it got closer to as time went on, I felt super guilty about it and had buyer's remorse. And I reached out to the yarn store to ask if I could cancel my order, and they allowed me to do so. And then a few months, not even a few months, I would say a few weeks after that, I was struggling with my knitting needles. I had bought a couple of fixed needles, said I had tried the Prims ergonomics needles, didn't really like those. I tried some Clover bamboo needles, didn't like the feel of those. I tried ChiaoGoo's fixed needles and I didn't mind those actually. I found that those worked pretty well, but if I was using a yarn that I didn't know how to manipulate very well, that I didn't have a strong what is it? Tension. There it is. Sometimes my stitches will be too loose or that it would keep slipping off the needle. So I could only use it for certain materials. Like I struggled using those needles with with mohair at the time. And I thought about just buying the the interchangeable needle set by CHAGU. It was $100 cheaper than the Forte needles, and it just made more sense. Well, it made more sense to purchase those. So before I was about to do that, I had went on to a local yarn store with the intention of buying a CHAGU interchangeable needle set, where I would get both the shorty set as well as the regular 4-inch, 5-inch length. And then I saw that the vendor I was about to purchase it from, they had one set of CHAGU Forte. And I'm like, well, this feels like serendipitous, so I might as well, because the CHAGU that I was going to purchase didn't have all the needle size. Now, granted, I don't really knit with too many items that are where you're using 6mm, 8mm, or 9 or 10, but I'd like to at least know I have the option of that. So I decided to buy them, and it was so worth it. I never spend money on myself until I became a knitter. Once I became a knitter, I became a regular consumer of things for myself. Occasionally, I would get my nails done, and it was usually at the generosity of my husband. Would offer to pay for me to get my nails and my toes done. Occasionally, I would get my hair done, but more often than not, I would just do my hair myself. I rarely went shopping. Those of you who've been watching me for a while, you notice I wear a lot of sweatshirts. I am in my full Suburban Mom gear, where I'm wearing what is this, leggings I probably got from either Target or some other big box store, or and this is a sweatshirt from a school I used to work at. So with all that said, I don't really dress for success at home. And my job doesn't have a very strict business casual dress code, so there's not as much incentive to dress nicer. So I do have a little bit more disposable income, and I've been taking full advantage of that with my yarn. So the CHAGU Forte were the knitting needles I purchased. I don't know if you can see in the far corner. I know it's like way in the back. Let's see if I can zoom in. I can't. Okay, but it's in a far corner. That is the box it came in. I like the box so much, I decided to keep it. It's been up there for a year now. But when you get a set of the CHAGU Forte needles, you have this beautiful leather case and zipper, and inside you have a pair of scissors. Oh, you need to see. I actually changed the scissors because I ended up using it for another project and I forgot to put it in, and so then I just used one of my extra scissors I had. It comes with a gauge reference. I added the emery board because my nails always snag. Has this cute little pocket, and inside the pocket it had, which still is actually in here. Yep. It has the additional interchangeable cords that not cords, but the things to screw in. It had a darning needle in there. What else was included? It had various stitch markers that you can use as well. I added one that I got from a visit to a local yarn store. It also has a measuring tape, which you see here. Let me just get there right here. It has a measuring tape. And in this, I love tins to keep all of my little notions in, because I found that when I kept it in the zipper, I don't know, sometimes the zipper notions and I don't always get along well. So, but the tins really do. So in your tin, you had the, what is this, the adjuster to kind of tighten it, had the little heart thing, has the stoppers in there, and it had more little stitch markers too. So I really like that. In addition to that, it had a pen that I didn't like the pen, so I took it out. And I don't usually need a pen because I don't print my patterns as much as I used to. When I was first started knitting, I used to print them out, but now I use my notes app as well as Knit Companion in order to keep that. It also has your knitting needles. So I'm currently using my 3.5, which is a US 4, and one of my US 5 and one of my US 6, which is 3.7 and 3 and 4, because I found that my purl stitches for one of the garments I'm making is a little bit looser, so I'm trying to tighten it up by having the 3.75 based on the trick. So yep, this is them. All of them, they're so perfect. And it looks like I'm also using the 5.5s for something. I don't know. And that's something I'm trying to get in a better habit of identifying where my knitting needles are. Because for the life of me at this very moment, I cannot tell you what project my 5.5s are in. I'm assuming they're for the cable pattern I had started a few weeks ago. but who knows. I have used the 8mm, the 6 and the 6.5. I've also used the 10. I haven't used the 9 yet. Oh, maybe I have because they're in there incorrectly, but overall, I really like them. The tips are not as sharp with the 10 and the 9, and it really isn't that necessary because with the 10 and the 9, I'm not really doing really intricate patterns that requires that. Usually it's a simple stitch, either a knit stitch or a garter stitch. So for the most part, it has been a wonderful experience. The only thing I did not like were the cords that came with them. I heard that the cords were not, the twist swivel cords from ChiaoGoo were not that great. People had already given reviews about them. And I try not to base my experience or my potential experience with a product on someone else's. I definitely like to listen to reviews just to get an idea, but I like to interact with the product first, or before I made that. There's only one YouTuber whose judgment I automatically trust because she hasn't stirred me wrong, and that's Tony Lipsy from TLY Crafts. Every yarn review that she's given, every overview she's giving about crochet hooks and needles has been spot on, because what she described pretty much was my experience as well. And sometimes I'm like, I should have listened to Tony when she said that. But the cords that came with it, I didn't like. It is true, your yarn, some certain yarns, let me be specific, certain yarns will get caught on the connection piece or whatnot. So that's the only drawback, but it wasn't consistent. It was only on some occasions where that little catch would happen. And I noticed it more so when the small and when I was using a thinner yarn. But when I was using a thicker yarn, that catch typically didn't happen. Or if I was using a yarn, if I use 2 or more strands of yarn, then I catch what happened. So I don't go to these too often. I will use them only if all my red lace are being used. I have so many different projects. I was going through a bit of a phase of where I was becoming a serial knitter rather than more monogamous to my projects, which is why I ended up with all of these different red lace cords. So I am now trying to narrow that down and get down to maybe 3 to 4 whips, because I noticed that the quality of my knitting is much better and I'm consistent with my stitch work with that. I like having the option of working on other projects, excuse me, if I'm feeling bored or frustrated with a project. So with that said, which brings me to my first whip. I made this particular project I'm about to show you with my ChiaoGoo. If you are someone that can that has access to purchasing the ChiaoGoo Forte, I highly recommend them. Not only has it been a overall wonderful knitting experience, but it gives you the luxury of having the benefits of a wooden knitting needle. There it goes. As well as the perks of having the steel, where you can go a little bit faster. I am still knitting pretty fast at the rate where I'm feeling like I'm going fast. It may not be fast to more experienced knitters. And again, it's not about the speed, it's about the quality. And I find that the quality of the work that I'm doing is coming out so much better. So this is my first whip that I have finished for 2024. This is my tessellated vest. Voila! I'm gonna turn on the light. It's starting to get a little dark in here, and I just clearly dropped something on the floor. Don't know. But this is my tessellated vest. It's finally dry. I could have taken it off the blocking mat yesterday, but I was so tired when I came home from work that it was the last thing I wanted to do. And then I wasn't feeling 100% either. So this particular garment I had been working on since last August. When Andrew and Mary came out with the pattern, I spent a good 2 to 3 weeks looking for yarn. I ended up going to my local yarn store here in Massachusetts called Circle of Stitches. It's located in Salem, Massachusetts. So if you're ever in Salem and you're doing the touristy thing and you're a yarn enthusiast, you can swing on by there. What I love about her store, or what I should say like about her store, because I don't go there very often, there's 2 things. One, if you purchase from her online store, and if you're having a little bit of a buyer's remorse, or like, oh my gosh, the final total is a little bit bigger than what I want to pay, uh, she does have the option of where you can make monthly and not monthly or bi-weekly installment payments if you are not comfortable paying in full for whatever reason. So that's one thing I really like about the yarn, about the store. The second thing I like about the store is that she carries a unique collection of yarn. It's not just your typical brands of yarns like Barocco and Cascade, which she does have in the store as well. But some of the more luxurious yarns that we don't see in most yarn stores, such as Labien, excuse me, Sanders Garn. She also has, obviously, Malabrigo is in her store. She has Moondrake, Spin Cycle. She has Yin Yang. I believe that's what it's called. It's a really beautiful yarn. Is it Yin Yang? Let me grab. Nope. Yes, Yin Yang loop. She carries this in her store as well. And so she has a really great collection of yarn, and I definitely go there whenever I'm in need of more of a specialty yarn. And so that's how I ended up going there late July, early August. It had to be early August because I was traveling for work at the time. So anyway, I was going down a rabbit hole of like, what am I going to knit this particular item with? I had made multiple swatches because after watching Casey, I really resonated. She was talking about her experience in knitting this particular vest, and I really resonated when she was talking about how expensive Spin Cycle was and how there's alternatives in case you want to make the pattern, but you don't want to spend the $32 to $38 per skein. And she suggested Cascade Heritage, and I really like Cascade. I have had such pleasant knitting and crochet experience with that particular yarn. So I ended up buying a couple skeins of the Cascade Heritage, which you can see here towards the bottom. And the reason why I did not end up making this vest with it is that I was going for more of a blue and gold color. And the mohair that I selected was giving me more of this lemon color rather than gold. And then the Cascade was giving me this beigey vibe, and it wasn't and it was pretty much going through that whole beigey vibe through the whole thing. It just didn't give me what I was looking for. So I was feeling a little frustrated because it took me a second to figure out the expectations for the pattern, and that's 100% on me, not on the pattern, which is a Tessellated Vest by Angela Mari. As you can see, I was going stripes, and I'm like, that's not what she wants you to do. And then I ended up rereading the pattern and realizing that you're supposed to like slip a stitch in order to make this more intricate mosaic tile. So I went to Circle of Stitches, and I knew going in by this particular point, I wanted gold and I wanted navy blue. I had already purchased yarn from Spin Cycle. I purchased a skein of yarn from there and their Moondrake yarn, the Moondrake yarn that they were carrying, and not realizing that Circle of Stitches had it. And I was like, oh, that wasn't the smartest move on my part. So anyway, go there, and as soon as I walked into the store, I saw the two skeins of yarn that was perfect. She had it in stock, and I was so happy that it was there. I purchased both of them, came home, ended up caking up the skein and made my first swatch. And I actually followed the directions for a tubular cast on, which came out so well. So what you see here at the bottom is one of the Spin Cycle colors that I had purchased from the actual Spin Cycle store, and I realized I didn't want the pink. As pretty as it is, the pink was definitely a strong contender. I was definitely like leaning towards that, but I've recognized the fact that the whole point of this project and why I decided to do it was that I wanted the blue and gold effect. All because I watched Fruity Knitting and saw what Madeline had did with these beautiful gloves that she knitted. I was like, girl, you just inspired me. I want to do it. So here is my finished product, my tessellated vest. I hope to insert a picture of me actually wearing it. I know I have not put in all my ends. This is definitely one of those moments where I wish I weaved in my ends as I was knitting. I know how to do it. I don't know. I have zero explanation as to why I should have did it, but I'm probably just going to be weaving in the ends along the sides where it's showing the most, but I can't foresee myself doing the inside where some of the ends are not done. And they do tuck in pretty well, so it's not a strong inclination for it. With this particular vest, it was a journey. I had I got fatigued. There's no other way to describe it. By the time I successfully got through the ribbing and I got to the middle point, I realized that there was no way in the world I was going to finish this before Rhinebeck, in addition to the other projects I had on my needles at the time. So with that said, it just kept hibernating and hibernating. And then I got to a point where I just wanted to finish it because I've been on my needles for so many months by then. And I'm glad I did. I wish I took my time towards the end because I was so busy rushing to get it done before January 1st, that I did finish it technically before January 1st, but the collar was all wrong because I wasn't reading the pattern to do the neck shaping and the underarm shaping properly. So one side was really long, almost to like my rib cage, past my rib cage, excuse me, and the other side was like all the way tucked in. It was just not my best showing of the work I can do. So it was pretty clear that I had two options. I could frog it, which I tried to do, and unfortunately, as you all know who knit with mohair, it's not going to come undone as easily as one would hope. So I decided to cut. So I went ahead and got a smaller, I used a 2.75 fixed needle set, and I just went into, I don't even know what part of the body I went into because the back wasn't even done yet. I hadn't, the back was done, but anywho, somewhere along the line, I went through, I think it was more towards here, towards the bottom, I would say. But I found a good place to start the point way past the underarm, went back on the needles, and then I just pushed myself just to follow the directions exactly. I put all of my other projects I was working on at the time on hold and just focused on this one, and I took my time. And I'm so glad I did, because it came out so much better and it fit so much better. Because initially when I finished, again, this comes from not reading as well, and listening, not listening, but hearing other people's experience, that Andrea Mari never denies the fact that she's short, and having met her, she is short and her torso is a little shorter as well. So it's already intended to be a cropped vest. And so if by sticking to the pattern, it was very cropped. It like fell right underneath my chest. So I wanted to add at least 2 more inches to it, which I did. So I was able to add additional inches to it, make it a little bit longer because I still wanted it to be cropped, but I didn't. I wanted the hem to be right on my belly button, which it is when I put it on. I also wanted it to be a loose enough fit where I can wear over multiple garments. So that's why I chose to do it in a size 3, because my measurements with the Positive Ease that she has for the pattern, I actually fall under a size 2. And I was like, woohoo, but I can't do a size 2 because it won't fit the way I wanted to. So, ooh, so that I literally did that with myself. So anywho, I ended up doing a size 3, and I'm glad I did that because it is the perfect fit. And this is the second time I have made a garment by Andrea Mari, and the second time it has fit like a glove, like perfectly the way that I have envisioned it. So I cannot wait to get the ends put in and taking a picture of myself and posting it, which I will do. But yeah, this is my one and only finished object. And yes, I consider it finished because if I wanted to, I could wear it out even with the ends sticking out. So that's done. I am still trucking away on the Weekender Light. It's not even worth showing. I'm still on the body. It's like a never ending story. Just when I think I did enough rounds in order to get the amount of inches that you need before breaking for the front and back, I do a measurement and I see I'm still 1.5 inches off. I tried using different measuring tapes, seeing if that was the case. And some, because certain measuring tapes doesn't always give you the accurate read. So it's a little bit of a frustration. My hope is that by the end of the day today, I will have successfully finished the body, and then I can go ahead and do the front and the back, because reading the pattern, it doesn't look like I'm going to be spending as much time on the front and the back having to do inches, but I could be wrong because I thought the same thing with the vest and we saw how that turned out. So I'm going to take my time and have that finished. My hope is still to get that done by the end of January. Right now, today is January 24th. So it's not looking too good. I don't foresee myself finishing it in the next 6 days, which is okay. And I'll just have to hopefully finish it before the end, mid-February. If I can give that to my sister-in-law by Valentine's Day, then that's a success, because we usually get together as a family around that day for no reason whatsoever. Just ends up always falling on our calendar. So we'll see. The other whip that I have fraud and tried to do something else with. Let's see if it's close by. Is this it? Nope, but I'll talk about this one anyway. This I have in fraud. This is my Copenhagen cardigan. And I'm making really nice progress on it. As you can see, I have my ChiaoGoo Forte knitting needles on here, and I'm using my red lace cables. And it's a beautiful, well-written, easy pattern. One reason why I will highly recommend this pattern, if you are someone that does not enjoy picking up stitches for the collar, the Copenhagen cardigan would be a really great one, because you can always modify it to add your own like twists and turns and other techniques to it. I have it all scrunched up so it looks smaller than what it is. But when I stretch it out, it actually is to the size it's supposed to be. So here we go. Oh, yes. Oh my God, this red looks gorgeous on my skin tone. But yeah, I love it. It's coming along great. You are working the collar. I'm going to pull this, make this closer. You're working the collar and the button band, there it is, at the same time that you're doing the pattern. And I have about 6 more increases to go before I break for the sleeves. So this is coming along really quickly, given the fact that this is a fingering weight pattern, and I'm using, what size needle? I'm using a 4mm needle, which is a US 6. Is working out fairly quickly. I decided not to hold this double. I'm holding this particular yarn single. This is my Mrs. Babs yarn. I'll include in the description box my details, but really quick. This is a part of the Laurel Falls collection. This is a sports weight 100% superwash merino. You get about 275 meters, which is 300 yards for every 100 grams of skeins. And I have, it looks like I have 3 or 4. And the colorway is called Dark Adrenamia. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's really cute. I'm loving it. It is hand dyed, so I thought about doing some helical knitting. And then I said, you know what? I don't care if it pulls, because A, it's a cardigan, and B, I actually like when that happens. It makes it look unique, and I don't like when things look too uniform when it comes to my hand knit garments. So I like unique things because I'm a unique person. So yeah, am excited about the progress I am making with this particular garment, and I should hopefully have this finished by the end of February if I continue working on it. This is just I'm watching TV in the bed knit. I'm not prioritizing that one quite yet. And the final whip, which is on the other side of the room, let me go grab it. I thought it was right next to me. In my little tote that I got from the Woolly Thistle for one of the mini kits I purchased I still have not made. So I had wanted to, after watching, because clearly I'm very easy to influence, after watching a podcast, I believe she calls it Knitting Therapy. She doesn't film herself anymore. She used to, but I think she's just taking a hiatus from it for whatever reason. But anywho, she was talking about this zipper sweater and her experience of knitting one for herself and her family. And I'm like, gosh, that would be such a great idea to do this for my family, because we all love the hoodie type sweaters and pulling things over. Then I remembered who I'm related to. And my sons, as I mentioned before, lose everything. I can make them beautiful, time-consuming hats, and it will be with them one day and gone the next day. And the yarn that I was going to use, I wanted to use something that I could wash on the regular basis because they're messy little people. But unfortunately, I don't really like the garment that the yarn was making. So I had some significant progress on my zipper sweater. I actually finished the collar. I was increasing to the point where I was about to break. I only had it because I was making the child size. It was going pretty quickly, but I decided to frog it, and I'm glad I did, because my the son who I was making this for is my youngest. He loves blankets, and so I decided that I'm going to crochet him a blanket because I haven't crocheted in a minute and I miss it. And so he loves the color red, and although this isn't that deep rich red, it is more this maroon type red. I'm thinking of, once I am successful, I'm making a corner to corner blanket. That's what I'm crocheting. and this was after 30 minutes. Corner to corner works up really quickly, and I'm using a 5.5 millimeter hook. So it's going really quickly, as I just said 4 times. And once I'm done, I'm going to add some Spider-Man faces to it. I made him a Spider-Man blanket years ago. I would say about 3 years ago now. And he had way too much fun with it, and it was destroyed. Like, there's no other way to describe it, because it was one of those lovey type blankets where it has a Spider-Man face and it came apart. Then I made him a Spider-Man pillow. It too was destroyed because who knows, he said something about with Iron Man and they were fighting and it took something out. So I decided, like, I'm gonna try again. I'm making him a lovely blanket because out of all of my kids, not that I have a lot, I only have 2 others, he's the only one who does not have a hand crocheted or knit blanket for me. My stepson has 2 or 3. No, he has 2, and I made a blanket for him and my son, my second son, Alexios, per his request. He wanted to have a really big blanket that he and Alexios could snuggle under while they were watching movies when they were younger. So it was really cute. So I am going to make this for Angelo, and I'm going to keep going along with it. Sundays are usually the days I like to crochet for some odd reason, and I've been itching to do so. So I'm really glad I have another project that I can work on, and it's corner to corner. And I don't know why, but I always enjoyed doing corner to corner crochet projects. So it's coming along really nicely. And I haven't touched it. It's been sitting here, and I will be picking it up sooner than later. Oh, thank goodness, it is my 5.5. This is my sweater number 19, no, 20. No, I don't know what number this is. This particular sweater pattern. This is by my favorite knitwears. Let me just whip out the pattern to actually tell you. Give me one moment, please. This is, nope. We just technical difficulties. No, that's the chart. See, this is why I don't print it out. I printed this out 2 years ago. It's sweater number 20 by my favorite knitwear things. I came across this pattern about almost 3 years ago now, and I really liked it, and I purchased it and printed it out and never touched it since, and had dedicated beautiful brown yarn to it that for whatever reason I changed my mind, and I'm not gonna even go into that long width of a story, but I decided to use my Bare Naked Wool yarn, and I am very glad about my choice. I'm loving the way that the mohair is blending with the wool. It's just, I just cannot wait to wear this. Unfortunately, we have not had a true winter here so far in Massachusetts. This past weekend, it was pretty cold. We had 15, 16, 17 degrees, but now it's back into the 40s, and tomorrow's going to be 50 degrees. So the likelihood of wearing this as often as I initially thought is very low, but you never know with the current weather systems that we have here. Maybe we'll just have a late winter, because right now it's not looking too good. But as you can see, I'm almost done with the back. I only have about 10 more rows of the back chart to do before I pick up stitches for the front. And I decided just to put this on hold until I finished my tessellated vest. But now that I'm so determined to finish my Weekender Light, I decided to wait a few more days until this done. But regardless of where I'm at with my Weekender Light, I am going to start that again starting February 1st. That is my love to myself, because I like to show myself love in February. And speaking of which, in February, this is what I attempted to do in the last video I recorded that just was not successful. My family had interrupted. It was just one of those days. So as you know, February is in the United States. I can't speak for other countries. February is Black History Month here in the United States. And typically we celebrate Black excellence. It's an opportunity to identify the contributions of Black Americans, because typically when telling the story of America and the accomplishments that the country has had, we frequently leave out the role or contributions of women, of other marginalized groups, specifically Black Americans. And it is my honor to teach AP African American Studies and to ensure that my students have a wonderful opportunity to learn about various experiences of not just Black Americans and Africans, but we also get a chance to talk about other groups too. And as I was going through the journey of researching new patterns as well as researching yarns, because I spend way too much time looking up yarns, I came across this podcaster whose YouTube channel is called Dr. Charlie Untangled, or Dr. Charlie Tangled is one of those. And I'm sorry if I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but anywho, what excited me so much about her energy was the fact that she was doing a make along that will allow people to not only celebrate Black History Month, but to learn how to be a micro activist and to learn how to engage with other products that are produced by Black makers that aren't typically featured on sites such as Vavory or other venues. So hearing the steps that she's taking in order to get this done, because not only did she do this really great overview about this make along, but she also did a live video to give more details about the experience. And on her webpage, she has a list of patterns that are designed by Black makers, both crochet and knitting. She also has a list of vendors who sell yarn that is either dyed by Black makers or sell yarn that is from a Black owned yarn store. So I'm really am excited to be a part of this particular make along. It starts February 4th and it concludes on March 18th, I believe. And she's going to have multiple instances where people can get together. She's based in Chicago, so she is partnering with her local yarn store in order to get people to come in and to celebrate the progress that they made on a project that's selected. And then she's also going to be doing some virtual events too. So if you are interested in joining, because it doesn't just have to be people who look like me, it can be anyone, I definitely encourage you to check it out. And then another make along that I am enjoying joining, is by the Black Knitter. Her YouTube channel and Instagram handle is called The Black Knitter. And for Black History Month, she too is doing the same premise of celebrating designers, yarn dyers, and yarn store owners who are of African descent or POCs. And it's just another opportunity to be exposed to other designers that you don't typically get a chance to work with. I know that I'm a huge fan of petite knit. Every single time I've knitted a petite knit, I've had a wonderful overall experience. There's not one petite knit pattern that I can't say nothing but positive things about. I mean, everyone, even when I made huge mistakes. Same thing with Adramari. I've only made 2 of her patterns. I own a lot, but I've only made 2 of them. And it's been a really wonderful experience. But they're not the only designers out there, although they write really well and they have amazing patterns that look great on our bodies. It's important just to check out other designers that you don't typically work with. And the same goes for yarn dyers too. And I know that that's pretty particular because not every yarn dyer does a really great job of dyeing yarn. And I have purchased some hand dyed yarn before. That just wasn't that good or whatnot. And it happens, totally happens and whatnot. But as wonderful as Needles at the Ready and Woolens and Nosh, because those are 2 of my favorite hand dye stores or online stores to purchase from. Also highly recommend Yarn Cafe. I love the selection of yarn that they have. They also dye yarn too. I want to give others a try as well. And so I was able to purchase some yarn, Lola Bean. I have her yarn, Hayes House. I have her yarn. And with Hayes House, not only is she a yarn dyer, but she's also a yarn store owner. And her husband makes bags. So it's almost a year now, if not longer. About a year or so ago, I purchased this bag from her online store, but now she physically has a store and I love it. It's so cute and it actually fits really well. I used to keep it in my work bag. This is where I keep my hat projects. So I'm on the fence about which pattern I'm going to do for this particular make along, because I'm going to have to double dip. Otherwise, I'll have too many items on my needles, which brings me to my acquisition. Once again, I thought the book was right here, but I moved it. So let me grab it. Those are my slippers that are sliding around my feet. Where is it? Here we go. So this is my acquisition. Dr. Charlie Untangled, I think, mentioned this book on her podcast when she was talking about the Make Along. And I never heard of this book before, Knitting for Radical Self-Care, A Modern Guide by Brandy Harper. I loved it from the second I opened it. What I like so much about it is that she gives you insights about the premise behind the book, but then she teaches you how to engage in knitting. So if you're brand new to knitting, or if you're someone that learns better from written words, this is a really good self-help book. Her pictures are actually spot on in terms of doing certain items, and she has some really beautiful, unique patterns that uses bulky yarn as well as worsted weight yarn as well. So I was going back and forth about which pattern I was going to do, and I finally settled on this pattern. Now, I selected this one because I really want to get into brioche. Brioche is addictive. I tried it. I liked it. I'm like, I want to do more of it. Let me see if I have my swatch still of brioche. Oh, yes, here it is. So my first time like really doing brioche and doing it right was with this particular swatch. Oops, it's supposed to be this way. This is my swatch for my Lento cardigan that I'm going to cast on Sunday. So before I start this cardigan, I want to make sure that I am fairly versed into brioche, and it's one of those stitch patterns that you just can't do. Well, for me, I can't do that as well as work on something else. So there's a pattern in here for a scarf that I want to do because I haven't made a scarf yet. Actually, in a long time. I crocheted a couple of them, but I haven't knitted one in a while. So I was thinking about doing that particular scarf that I just showed you from the book. And I have yarn that I got from this Yarn Love exchange we did at my job last year. So I'm going to use that because I've been looking for a pattern to go with that, and it'll be perfect. But I still want to do a hat. I haven't made a hat in a minute, and I want to make a hat. So at Hayes House, I forgot I have this beautiful yarn. So it's multicolors, it's really pretty, and it's perfect for Valentine's Day, I think, or Valentine's month because of all the pretty colors in it. It has blue and pink and purple and red. And so I was thinking about using this as my hat, and the hat pattern. I do like a modification on the Jason Cashmere hat with Oslo. Just depending on what mood I'm in, I will do one or the other. And I never did a DK weight version of the Jason Cashmere hat. So that might be an option, or I might do an Oslo hat using this. I didn't find any hat patterns created by a Black designer that I liked. I did find a sock pattern, there it is, there's a word, pattern that by a Black designer that I might do. I have a whole bunch of Lola Bean yarn. I shouldn't say a whole bunch, I only have one skein of Lola Bean yarn that's in fingering weight, which is what the pattern calls for. And I have several little mini skeins from Enchanted Yarns, which is by Lonnie Bunny. So I have these little mini skeins that I could hold because the pattern I'm looking at is striping. So this will be my main color and this would be my stripes. So I was thinking about doing that. And then the final thing I was thinking about doing, let me see if I can find it. So Enchanted Yarns, Lonnie Bunny's Enchanted Yarns is the full name of it. I'm going to put there it is. I was also considering doing the Musselburgh hat and doing half the hat in this gray. Let me bring this closer. And the other half in this gold. And with the gold, it's called Beehive Queen DK. This was to celebrate Beyonce's Renaissance tour and its success. And this one is called Renaissance Night DK, and both of them are 60% superwash merino, 20% yak, and 20% silk. And so I think that they would make beautiful hats. It would be perfect. I wish I had a larger quantity of it. Otherwise, I would make a top because they are both very soft. So this is definitely going to be the Musselburgh hat. There's no denying it. It will be the Musselburgh hat. Musselburgh, Berg. I think that's it. This is most likely going to be the Oslo hat. I have already a skein of yarn put aside for the Jason Cashmere hat, so I should just go ahead and do that. So this is going to be the Oslo hat, and this lovely one is most likely going to be that striping sock pattern I have found, or I might make a pair of socks by Denise DeSantis. I just can't decide, but I really definitely want to use this. This is the Turtle Dove base by Lola Bean. It's 80-10-10, so 80% superwash, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon, which I think will work well. And this would be my stripe. I do have one more little skein of yarn that came from Enchanted Yarns, but I don't know what I did with it. But I definitely have enough yardage to do that, and I might do one sock in one color and one other sock in another color. Who knows? Play around with it. But yeah, that's it. So I shared with you my future plans. A lot of accessories, it looks like what I'm going to be doing in February. The Oslo hat works up super quick. I have literally made an Oslo hat in a weekend, especially when I use DK weight yarn. So highly recommend that pattern. Definitely love it. It's my go-to hat pattern. So when in doubt, I use that one. The Muscle Burl, I haven't made one of those. It's hard for me to want to make one of them because of the design of the pattern. I'm like, that's literally just what the Sorrento knitting machine is. I'm tempted just to put this on the Sorrento and make it. But the only thing that's different is just with the crown, and I don't care about that. So still on the fence about that, but either way, this will be made into a hat, and then this will be made into a pair of socks. So I am so happy that I have all these beautiful yarns for my Black History Month make-alongs that I'm going to be doing. I do have a pair of self-striping socks that I'm making. It's my new at work sock pattern that I'm doing right now. I'm actually almost done with the second sock. I definitely like self-striping yarn, and I do see myself buying more of it. I've actually been spending a lot of time looking for that, so I'm looking forward to doing some more vanilla socks, just so I can work up my confidence in doing that. I think maybe one more pair, and then I can go right into the more cable and lace. I've only made one pair of lace socks, so those are coming along well. I don't have them here with me, so that's why I'm not going to show you next time, definitely. But just to recap, I highly encourage you, if you have the capacity to join in the make along. There's a variety of different crochet and knitting patterns that are available to do, and that you can do for both the Black History Black Knitters make along, as well as the Dr. Charlie Untangle knit along. In addition to that, I highly encourage you to support your local yarn stores that are owned by people of color, and giving them your patronage. Or if they're not physically in a store, that you go onto their online website and make that purchase. And then finally, just keep on knitting and crocheting and making all those beautiful things. We have to just do more to take care of ourselves, which is why I am about to sign off, so I can go rest my mind and my body, because I'm a little tired. Although I didn't physically go into the school building today, I spent the whole day lesson planning, and I have so much grading to do. So I'm gonna try to decompress before I jump right into the bandwagon of grading. I hope that you all are doing well, and I thank you so much for tuning in to my overview about my experiences as a knitter. Thank you for watching.